Today I'm going to talk about things that matter. Things that matter is a title of something I wrote when I was 22 years old. At the time I was studying fine arts, and I was a starving art student, and my main goal at the time was to search for beauty. And I thought about today, actually, what is my search? And my search is actually still the same thing. I think I'm still looking for beauty, and today I want to kind of trigger your thoughts on what beauty means, what it does in the world, and why it's relevant in the 21st century. I grew up in Paris. I don't know if you can see this slide. It's a little bit dark. It's actually a picture of the Mona Lisa. Until last year, I was still living in Paris, and every week I would go to the Louvre, and I was basically a few streets away from there. And my main, every Wednesday night, I would go to the Louvre, not to look at, of course I would look at the paintings and the art, but I was more interested at looking at the people, looking at the art. Because to me, the behavior, the way people behave in front of an artwork, and especially something like the Mona Lisa, is very interesting to me, because I always wonder what happens in their heads whenever they see it. What is their expectation? And what is the emotion that comes out whenever they finally they arrive in the museum and they discover what they've been imagining all day long? And it's something that I imagine most of you in this room have seen the Mona Lisa in reality or virtually or in books. And this is the room where the painting is, and people are kind of standing behind this rope. And I often stood there just looking at people and just, curious about what's going on in their minds. Before you even arrive in the room where the Mona Lisa is, you actually have maybe about like 100 signs that already show you the painting in different ways. And to me, it makes me wonder about our societies these days. Is it something that we're always following what we're asked to do? That we're told that, for example, something like the Mona Lisa is a masterpiece, therefore we have to see it. But people don't necessarily know what they're supposed to, or why they go see it in the first place. Is it just because you're supposed to go to the Louvre when you're in Paris? Or is it because they really want to see it and feel something and experience something for themselves? But when I see this kind of sign pointing in all directions, it really makes me wonder whether people have even thought about why are they there in the first place? Is it just because they have been told they have to see it, or whether they really have that desire to see the artwork, and whether the beauty of that painting has any meaning to them? So today, my question really is, what is beauty? And I want to ask this question even to all of you. Have you ever asked yourself this question? Maybe never, maybe you do every day, I don't know. But I think it's a question that's very important, and yet we don't ask ourselves. In the 21st century, I don't think we ask ourselves what this question means and why it would potentially be a very valuable question in our societies. And unfortunately, I think it's a question that maybe people think is not important, that it's not really a practical one, is a very abstract question. But I think all all of us, we have our own idea of what beauty is. And that's, something today I want to try to trigger that question inside of you and try to make you think about it. Beauty is not something constant. It comes and goes. It's obviously not happening all the time. I think it's something that's very ephemeral, and it's something that comes and goes. And those are things, those beautiful moments are caught, can be caught by surprise, and most often are quite unexpected. And they can go from a detail of something, a glimpse, something that you look at, but it can also be a moment, an experience that is very hard to define, that is not possible to explain, but is really inside of you. You feel at that particular moment this experience of beauty. And therefore, beauty is not something that is really a physical thing that you can touch. It's not something that you can physically grab and grasp and explain. It's really something that's intangible, and it's kind of like in the air, something that you're not, it's quite mysterious actually. And so beauty, I think, is kind of like a journey. It's about the place where you are now, the distance between the place where you're now and the place you're going to. It's about the distance between the things that you know and the things that you don't know. I think beauty is really in between a lot of things that you often don't consider. But beauty exists within those spaces, within those moments. And often unexpectedly, you have encounters, or you go places, you meet people, you encounter these people who actually make you see things in a certain way. And for example, these kids that I met last year in Laos, they made me see beauty in a new way, and they kind of revealed a new perspective for myself. And I think those are things to consider in that experience of beauty, that how other people can reveal beauty to you in a different way, and you discover something about it through them. So the way you experience beauty, the way you look for it, or the way you experience it, I think is a way of shaping the way you look at the world. And for that reason, to me, beauty is very important, because the way that perception is a way of forming a kind of perspective on the world, but it also shapes and it transforms people's behavior. I think the way we behave is deeply affected by our perspective, our way of looking at the world, the way we look at people, and the way we experience things very much affects the decisions that we make in our lives. And in that sense, I think if beauty drives what you do in your life, I think more positive things can happen. If you think how beauty could affect or affects these things like life, culture, and people, if you think about how beauty can affect those things, have you thought about it? I think these days we don't think about it so much. We don't think about what beauty does to life. And I must say that in our 21st societies, there's not so much beauty, or not so much place for beauty in our world. I find that very unfortunate. And I really want to see more space for that kind of thinking. I think it affects the way we make and build and sustain ourselves, our places, And if those things are inspired, those actions are inspired by beautiful thoughts or a beautiful vision, I think it can really make a difference, no matter at what scale, whether it's a small scale or big scale. We live in a very kind of, product-driven society, and I think we consume a lot, and we have to think about whether what we consume is, very sustainable. And unfortunately, I think beauty these days is more often perceived as a commodity. It's more something that you purchase rather than something that you experience. So the idea is whether what you purchase, isn't it better to have less, but of better quality, things that are more beautiful but have less things? I think, simple life is something to promote. And more recently, I've been looking at what's happening in Japan after the 2011 disaster, and a lot of movements are actually inspired by more simple values rather than financial ones. And this movement called Minge is really about the simple life that people have been living. It's about very simple craftsmanship, things that are made locally. And I think those things are returning now after so many, after so much development in Japan. I think suddenly the country is going back to much more simpler values. This is one of the Minge kind of art that says beyond beauty and ugliness. And so really what we need to think about is, I think, the appreciation for what we have today, what we have, and the appreciation of things that already exist as opposed to things that we want to have. I think we have to look at what is already around us. The beauty that already exists around us is sometimes neglected. So most of my work these days is about that. I go explore, and I try to rediscover or discover things that already exist, and they're very valuable things, but unfortunately they're a bit neglected, but they're very beautiful things that are relevant for us in the 21st century. Those are some images of my work. I'll pass a little bit quickly because I'm running out of time. And so, locally, I think there are many things that we can do. We can produce beautiful things at a local level and have a really meaningful global impact. So very last thing, I'm gonna go and explain two concepts of Japanese beauty that are very important, I think, and very relevant. One is wabi. It means contented poverty. It's about the beauty of imperfection, because imperfection makes you appreciate what we have, and it's very important to keep that in mind, that nothing can be perfect. The second one is called iki. It's not as famous as wabi, but iki is about effortless beauty. It's the beauty that is not artificial. It just comes from everyday life. And it's about the aesthetic of everyday life, because beauty is not something you put in a frame. It's something that is lived. It's something that we all live, and by living it, it's being created. So it's about the possibilities that are still ahead of us. It's the possibilities that we have yet to find in life, and by living we can create more beauty. Thank you very much.